Someone just told you something important. Maybe it was devastating news. Maybe it was the best thing that's happened to them all year, and you felt yourself freeze. Your face stayed calm, neutral. You nodded and said something like, "Oh, wow, okay." And you watched their expression change. You saw the disappointment, the confusion, maybe even hurt, because they wanted you to gasp or cry or jump with excitement, and you just didn't. And now you're sitting with that familiar wave of shame because you know what they're thinking. They think you don't care. They think you're cold, detached, maybe even a little broken. And the worst part, you do care deeply. You just can't seem to show it in a way that convinces anyone, including yourself sometimes. If this is your life, if you've spent years being called emotionless when you're feeling everything, I need you to hear this. You are not broken. You are not defective, and you are certainly not cold. Your brain is simply wired to process emotion through a completely different pathway. And today, we're going to decode the neuroscience of why you don't react and why your silence might actually be the deepest form of feeling. To understand yourself, we need to start with what most people think a reaction is, because we've been taught that emotion and expression are the same thing, that if you feel something, it should show on your face immediately. Sadness means tears. Excitement means jumping. Anger means raised voices. And if those things don't appear, well, you must not be feeling anything at all. But neuroscience tells us something completely different. When you encounter an emotional moment, your brain is doing exactly what everyone else's brain does. The stimulus hits your amygdala. That's your emotional center. The alarm goes off. The feeling registers. You are having the emotional experience. But here's where you diverge from the majority. For most people, that signal travels straight to their facial muscles, their voice, their body language. The emotion becomes visible almost instantly. But for you, that signal takes a detour. It routes through your prefrontal cortex first, the analytical part, the processing center. Psychologists call this high cognitive reappraisal. You're not suppressing the emotion. You're not choosing to hide it. Your brain is automatically running it through a deeper analysis before it reaches your face. You're asking questions without even realizing it. Is this the appropriate response? What does this mean? How should I process this? What's really happening here? Think of it like this. Most people's brains are like a direct phone line, emotion to expression, instant. But your brain is running the call through a switchboard first. The emotion is there. The line is connected. It's just being filtered through multiple channels before it reaches the outside world. And this creates what psychologists call the expression gap, the space between what you're feeling and what shows on your face. For most people, that gap is milliseconds. For you, it might be minutes, hours, sometimes days. You'll feel the full weight of someone's news hit you in the moment, but your face won't catch up until you're alone in your car 3 hours later. This is why you've probably had the experience of crying about something days after it happened and thinking, why didn't I react like this when they told me? It's not that you didn't care then, it's that your system processes emotional expression on a delay. But here's what nobody tells you. This isn't a defect. This is actually a sophisticated form of emotional regulation that most people don't have access to. Research in effective neuroscience shows that people with high cognitive reappraisal, people like you, often have better long-term emotional outcomes. You don't get swept away by every emotional wave. You can stay functional in a crisis. You can think clearly when others are panicking. Your calm isn't coldness. It's emotional shock absorption. You're taking in the full force of the moment, but you're not letting it knock you over. You're processing it in real time so you can actually be useful instead of just performatively emotional. But I know that doesn't make it easier when someone looks at you with that expression, that disappointed, hurt look that says, I just told you the most important thing in my life, and you barely blinked. You've learned to dread sharing moments with people because you know your face will betray you. Or more accurately, your face will tell the truth about your processing speed, and people will mistake that for apathy. So where does this come from? Why are you wired this way when most people aren't? The answer lies in something called regulatory flexibility, and it often starts very early. Some children grow up in environments where emotional expression was safe, encouraged even, loud households where feelings were currency. Cry and someone comforts you. Laugh and everyone laughs with you. Get excited, and the whole room celebrates. Those children's brains learn that expressing emotion creates connection. But maybe that wasn't your childhood. Maybe you grew up in a home where emotions were unpredictable, where a parent's mood could shift without warning, where showing too much feeling made you a target or a burden. Or maybe emotions weren't punished. They were just private, quiet, internal. Your family didn't do big displays, not because feelings were wrong, but because they were personal. Your brain adapted. It learned that safety means observation first, expression second. It learned that the best way to navigate the world is to feel deeply, process thoroughly, and reveal selectively. This isn't damage. This is your nervous system doing exactly what it needed to do to keep you safe. But here's the complication. Not all non-reactivity is the same, and this is important. There's a difference between being a natural non-reactor, someone whose brain processes before expressing, and someone experiencing what's called emotional blunting. Emotional blunting is when you genuinely can't feel anything. It's a symptom of depression, trauma, anxiety, or sometimes medication side effects. And the experience is completely different. If you're a natural non reactor, the emotion is there. You feel it. It's rich and real and present. You just don't show it immediately. But if you're experiencing emotional blunting, it's like trying to feel through anesthesia. You know you should be feeling something, but there's just nothing. A flat line where feeling should be. The key difference is this. A natural non-reactor can access their emotions when they're alone or when they feel safe. You might not cry in front of others, but you can cry by yourself. You have emotional range. It just expresses privately. But emotional blunting is numbness across the board. You want to feel, and you can't. That's not a personality trait. That's a symptom. And if that's what you're experiencing, that's worth talking to someone about, because you deserve to feel the full spectrum of your humanity. But if you're someone who feels everything deeply and simply doesn't broadcast it on your face, I want you to understand something. You are not failing at being human. Society has just built a very specific script for what caring looks like, and your version doesn't fit that script. The truth is, in any group, you need emotional diversity. You need the people who react quickly, who sound the alarm, who mobilize everyone with their visible emotion. They're important. But you also need people who can hold steady in a crisis, people who can absorb information without immediately flooding, people who can think clearly while everyone else is overwhelmed. That's you. You're the ballast, the anchor, the person who can stay present when staying present is the hardest thing to do. Your lack of visible reaction isn't emotional poverty, it's emotional endurance. And here's something fascinating. Research shows that non-reactors often score higher on measures of deep empathy, not performative empathy, deep empathy. While others are busy performing their emotional response, you're actually absorbing what the other person is going through. You're running a silent simulation of their experience in your mind. You're holding space instead of filling it. Your friend tells you something devastating, and while everyone else is gasping and hugging and offering immediate advice, you're sitting quietly, actually feeling the weight of what they just said. You're not planning your response. You're not thinking about what to say next. You're just with them, fully present in a way that doesn't require performance. But the world doesn't reward that kind of presence, does it? The world rewards visible emotion, big reactions, dramatic responses. So you've spent your life feeling like you're disappointing people just by being yourself, right? So how do you navigate this? How do you survive in a world that constantly misreads you? First, you stop apologizing for your wiring. You might feel pressure to perform emotions you don't naturally display, to force shock or excitement or sadness onto your face, because that's what people expect. But every time you do that, you're teaching people that the real you isn't enough. And you are. You are absolutely enough exactly as you are. Second, learn to translate yourself. This doesn't mean faking reactions. It means giving people a window into what's happening inside when your outside stays quiet. When someone shares something important and you feel yourself going still, you can say, "I'm taking that in," or "That's really significant. I need a moment to process what you just told me." These small phrases give people context. They transform your silence from indifference into engagement. Third, find your people. The ones who understand that your calm isn't coldness. The ones who've learned to read your micro expressions. The tiny shifts that others miss. the slight softening around your eyes, the way you lean forward just slightly, the quiet oh that carries more weight than someone else's scream. When you find people who can read your language, the relief is extraordinary. And finally, honor your private processing. Because here's what nobody tells you: just because you don't express emotion in the moment doesn't mean it disappears. You're not emotionless, you're emotionally delayed. And that means you need space to feel what you couldn't show. Maybe it's the drive home from a conversation where you finally let yourself cry. Maybe it's lying in bed that night, replaying what someone told you, and finally feeling the full weight of it. Maybe it's 3 days later when you're doing something completely unrelated and the emotion finally catches up to your face. That delayed processing is real, it's valid, and it needs time and space. Don't judge yourself for feeling things on your own timeline. Your emotions are just as legitimate whether they show up in 3 seconds or 3 days. The next time someone shares something with you and you watch your own face stay calm, I want you to remember something. Your lack of visible reaction doesn't mean you're broken. It means your brain is doing something more complex than immediate expression. You're absorbing, integrating, processing at a depth that requires silence. You are not cold. You are not defective. You are not emotionally stunted. You're just speaking a different emotional language. And in a world that won't stop performing, your quiet depth is exactly what we need. I hope enough was said, and enough thanks you for being here. See you in the next one.